Hello, everyone. You remember the special surprise I told you we'd have? Well, here he is, Brandon. You're my community. My community's been waiting for you. I've been telling them about the bringing together of the human elements and the spiritual elements, even though we usually talk about inner growth. So we'll begin with those aspects, but eventually we'll lead into something else. So before we begin, can you please introduce you, not me, you to the community, who you are, what you do, or anything else you'd like them to know?
Of course, and thank you for having me on here. I'm a little bit like, oh boy, I wonder what the buildup's been pretty huge for this apparently. So hopefully
Yes.
I can make the most of it. But for those of you guys that don't know me, my name is Brandon Tobias. I run a YouTube channel called Science of the Soul and Stars. And what I do is I help people find their greatest soul purpose through navigating the areas of true love and relationship. And one thing I believe is that true love is the greatest catalyst to growth and transformation and helping someone find and step into their soul purpose here on earth. And so that's what I help people to find and to do.
I have two questions already for you. True, but we'll start with the first. It says true love. I'd love later. I'll write a note down here to get your definition on true love. But before that, I noticed you're back, that your podcast or the video, your YouTube channel had a different name. The transformation. I'm curious if you can share with us.
Yeah. Do you mean the name of the channel?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it did go through a change, huh? Okay,
Yes.
I totally forgot about that. So it was, I think it was Modern Science for the Ancient Soul.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I thank you for bringing that up. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, so what I've realized over time is that as I've evolved as a human being, my business or my expression of myself to the world through my YouTube channel has also evolved. And really what it was before I was in a place where I was thinking logically all the time. And it took me a long time of thinking about what was the perfect name. What did I want to present to the world? What was the facade I wanted to present to the world that would look or feel good? And what came through was Modern Science for the Ancient Soul. And then as I evolved and came more into my own heart through my own journey, it evolved into spontaneously Science of the Soul and Stars. And you can see as I say that,
you light up.
My whole body. I light up.
Yeah.
It comes off so naturally. And it's like it was meant to be. And that's how that's how I know, at least, that I am fully in alignment with my soul purpose, is when I can speak and my whole body is in resonance with what I'm speaking. And so anyways, that was what happened with the evolution there.
How did you get the aha moment of the name?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me
think.
I think I'm trying to think back to when exactly it happened. I think I was laying in bed. I want to recall the exact moment. Okay. It was a big wow. I'm just thinking back now. Okay. So here's what's interesting is when I came up with that first name, my life was completely different. I was living at my parents' house after quarantine, or no, this is before quarantine actually. Anyways, I can't remember, but I was in a relationship, and we were going through tremendous amounts of growth and transformation through that relationship, and I was in the midst of that, and I was trying to create this channel and this thing. And it just wasn't working out. It just was, it was random content I was putting out, and it just wasn't catching. I mean, it didn't have any order to it. It didn't have any resonance to it. It just was random content that I thought was interesting, that I thought people would want to see. And what happened was I kind of left that behind for a while, focused on the relationship, focused on other parts of my life and my work. And then my relationship went through an ending, and it went through a death of sorts. And what feels like now is in the midst of some major transition and transformation in my life. And through that death of sorts, right, that was also a part of me that was going through a death and a transformation.
Yeah.
And within that transformation, through the external reality of the relationship, but also within my own soul, the beingness of my true expression to the world was born.
Okay.
And it spontaneously did come through. Shortly after that, at some period, maybe a month or two after the death of that relationship, into Science of the Soul and Stars. And it was very spontaneous. It was very much, this is where it needs to go now.
Yeah.
And it was much more focused in on love for some reason.
Okay.
It was much more focused in on love. But also with the room to grow into something much more than that overall.
Yeah. So when you were facing disconnects, as you were saying, when you say the new name, which I'm not going to run, the old, you feel it when you're going through those moments of disconnects. Were there things you would contemplate? Did thinking help you achieve a specific place of aha with where you redirected the focus?
The question was, does thinking...
The disconnect, when you would feel that it was disconnected from your purpose, how would you think through that? How would you explore those aspects? Because the feeling obviously said, okay, this is not it. And even though you focused on your relationship, of course, I'm sure there were moments where you'd go back to the channel and be like, okay, but I want to do this. Like, how were you contemplating? How were you evolving and realizing, wait, there's something missing here?
Beautiful question. Yeah, totally get it. So here's the interesting thing is that when I was out of resonance with my channel and my expression, I didn't know it. I was not aware of it. I simply was thinking that it wasn't something that I could do, wasn't something that was possible, wasn't something that was meant for me. And I was like, it's not going to work. YouTube's too saturated, right? All the excuses came in. YouTube's too saturated. I don't know how to do this like other people can. I can never do, thumbnails, things like that. The things that make people successful tangibly, practically, all these things, right? And it never occurred to me that it was simply who like my growth journey wasn't to the place where it could be in full resonancy with what I was expressing. That never occurred to me. But the reality, looking back, really, it was simply the fact that it wasn't time for that yet. What it was time for, life was redirecting me. One of my philosophies in life, for everyone listening, is life will always redirect you to the area of life that is meant to have your focus and energy. So my need was actually at that time to focus more on the relationship part. And because that was the part where I was needing the most amount of growth and transformation, and all of it came. And the minute that happened, the minute that I focused on what life was giving for me at that moment, naturally, spontaneously, out of nowhere, I became back into full resonance with my business. And it was so, now talking about when it happened, it was so obvious. It was so obvious that what I had created prior was no longer in alignment with me, that it wasn't even a question. It wasn't even like a logical thing. It was just like, oh, that's not even, like, I have to create something completely new now. And so to answer your question, there wasn't the awareness at that time until I went through that transformation, and then it became very obvious and easy.
And actually, I'm going to add, the listeners of the podcast know this because we talk about the inner growth mindset, which is this way of trusting your ego, yourself. You're always where you're meant to be. So you used a couple words, right? So first you said, I was not aware, but then you talked about the universe redirecting, always where you're meant to be. Essentially, it's not that it's redirecting. You are exactly where you're meant to be every step of the way. Right. So we could say that it wasn't that you weren't aware. It was that you needed to be aware of the other things that were part of that moment in time. And so, but the fascinating part with the disconnect. So while you follow guidance, it seems naturally, because there are other people who don't, they actually perform resistance. And on that topic, we probably have much to share about this together, because I actually see people resisting what the universe, what life, what their own inner world is actually bringing up through feelings. I saw one of those videos from when it was modern day science, whatever.
whatever it was.
Whatever it was, which I really wanted to ask, like, but maybe you can tell us later, like what the objective was. I'm curious to know, like, if you had an objective with it, because I'm curious, but maybe after. But
Yeah.
The part of resisting through fear. So you mentioned in one of your videos, fear, and this is where you gave a good example of all the other feelings that are underneath that feeling. And I always tell people, look at it with neutrality, and mention Carl Jung, the psychologist, who explains if we can do that, we achieve transcendent function, and you make leaps of consciousness. And we are states of consciousness. We think and feel. We can unite those if we pay attention to our body. So I mean, for me, I guess I would readdress, you were not aware, you were aware, you were where you were meant to be way back when. And then you caught up with your timeline and you found that perfect fit, but really you were ready to lead as well. And this is where it's never really redirection. It's getting you prepared. The people who instead resist, they stay in that suffering, which you didn't do. So I am curious if there ever were disconnects that created turmoil within you. How did you deal with them? How do you deal with them? If you'd like to share something.
Absolutely. Another beautiful set of questions, by the way. So excited to dive in. Absolutely. And by the way, I just want to share, I was actually one of the people who resisted the most.
Oh gosh, no way, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I know it might
Oh
be
my gosh.
looking at where, where I'm at now and
Yeah.
it's hard to imagine, and I still, by the way, resist all the time. So it's not like I don't resist at all, but back then, especially, I was the most resistant, and I was the most in my head, and I was allowing my tendencies to allow my head. And if most people listening probably can relate to this, is I used to think that the head or the mind was the most important asset of the human body, that the mind could figure out, and the mind was responsible for figuring out our life purpose and our next steps and who we should be with in love and everything. And the furthest thing that could be that's the furthest thing from the actual,
yeah.
But I was one of those people. And so I was where I was at, trying to figure out everything with my head, my love situation, my business, my future, my purpose. And of course, none of it was working. And it was all resistance, right? And the minute that I surrendered, the biggest word that came to me as you asked that is the word surrender. Surrendering to what is currently in your life, and allowing whatever that is to show you and to teach you the lessons that you need to learn right now, is the fastest way. Not always the easiest, sometimes the easiest, but the fastest way to redirecting, as you said, to your best timeline or your ultimate life purpose. And the way for me at that particular time was to surrender to the love, the true love experience and the relationship that I was in, that I was in so much resistance to. And this is why and how and where the birth of my channel came to be, is because I realized, well, there's a thing called true love, and that thing is not logical. It doesn't obey the rules of logic. And even though I have for most of my life, all of my life, been able to rule my life from my head, there's now this one thing that I can't explain, that I can't logically, pin down. And you know what I mean? And it's now this thing. And so when I realized that, and I went through the process of surrendering to that, I realized, oh, life is about surrender, and life is about following your feelings and allowing your head to help create what your feelings want to create.
Yeah.
So that was the story there. I don't know if that answered your question.
We're having a conversation, and I'm sure that, yes, it answered more than one question for whoever's listening to this conversation.
Cool.
And so right here, you just said true love. What is your definition? If you had to define, express, explain?
Yeah.
What would you?
That's a good question. I've never been asked this question, by the way. So it's interesting that we get a chance to define this, that I get a chance to define this. True love is, it's love that is so unexplainably deep, so much out of the bounds of logical, tangible reality, and so incredibly rich, fulfilling, spontaneous, and also intense and hardcore that your life can never ever be the same once it's experienced. It's the journey, it's this roller coaster of the highest highs of what life has to offer and the lowest lows, the greatest possible experience and experiences that life has to offer you as a human, us as a human being on this planet. That is the essence of true love. It's the ecstasy of everything, and it's the hell of nothingness, all wrapped into one experience. And it's the fastest track. It's the fastest vehicle that I know of, at least in my life experience, to get us, to get you, to get me to reach what we're here to do and to grow, to become in full alignment with unconditional love.
Now, would you say that it's directed towards one person?
Yes.
So the way to experience true love is with an individual.
Yes, I would say that is true. And this, I'm glad you brought that up. This may be, this is, when I say these questions, or when I answer these questions, this is in my life experience. This is in my life path. This is what I'm here to teach. And there's a collective of people that have started to follow me, that are in the same boat, that are in the same life experience and path. And some of your listeners may not be in that. Now, some of your listeners may disagree and say, hey, love, true love can be with, and it is essentially with everyone all the time. It's unconditional. But when I say true love, it's a little different. I want to differentiate unconditional love from true love, because true love is what leads you to unconditional love.
Yes.
Okay. When I say true love, I mean the true romantic ecstasy of love. It's the passion and the fire of connection, electromagnetic connection between two individuals that cannot be explained logically. That is for the purpose of taking those individuals and ascending them to a place where they can be in alignment with unconditional love. That's what I mean by that. That's the journey.
Yes.
That's my particular soul's path to unconditional love. Everyone has their own vehicle to unconditional love.
Exactly. We know this. And the listeners of this community, they know we always talk about, there's never one label, there's never one definition. This is where we're talking to you, Brandon. So I'm asking you, it doesn't mean the whole world needs to agree. In fact, I'm sure there's many people that don't agree. They don't even believe in true love or unconditional love for that matter, so this is where, and if I have to add a note on that whole, let's get into the ascension part and cellular and energy. So for me in general, the love is love. Love is always true when it is in the absence of fear. And therefore, a person can experience it in many different circumstances. The only reason we have these words, obviously, is because of other constructs, but it doesn't make them any less important. And as you pointed out, your soul's journey, you know what it is. Therefore, it is to speak to these individuals who, through that true love experience and the wisdom you will share with them and the balance you will share with them that you already do, they achieve that place. And it's the most beautiful place, if I have to be honest, to share to somebody, to be able to achieve a space of non-destructiveness with their going through the hell of what happens when things don't go as one wants them to go. This is where issues are created. But essentially, when I think of ascension and the part of soul groups and soul, my community knows we've talked about soul ages and therefore the different types of lessons that each soul can or can't learn. I talk to people who don't believe in souls at all, and I still say, let's break it down to energy, or if you don't want to break it down to energy, we can break it down to psychology and relationships. There's a healthy way of loving and there's an unhealthy way, and anything that is a dependency is not true love. And there are many of be a relationship or family and friends and yada, yada, yada. But the true love that you speak of is where unconditional love is present. The highs and lows are for the growth of the individual as they take love versus cling on to fear. And as they cling on to fear, they build a specific type of energy and they stay in that space because they're not learning to move in a direction of unconditional love. And energetically speaking, when true love does come together in that way, it is and it's powerful. I mean, it's a vibration that spreads across. It's like the magic of prayer. I don't know if you know about Greg Braden, but my community, again, they know of him. And I've mentioned to them some of the studies he's discussed at times in his seminars. And one of them is when people, and I forget which institute, prayed, and where wars stopped. I mean, to be in heart and mind coherence, which is where you are standing in a place of flow with your body, all aspects that we achieve. Again, you've achieved this place now and then are leading with topics that we actually speak about, but essentially it's the feeling. It's funny because I'm a very big mind person, but I've also always been a very big heart. And I've also always worked for harmony in synergy, but I've never turned off the mind. In fact, don't ask me to, my mind loves to think, but I've never resisted life. So today I was mentioning, I've always trusted life. So this is a different aspect, but the true love part, it's interesting when people can take it with unconditional love and can learn from those experiences. And talking about that is making me think, what services do you offer specifically, if I may ask quickly, if you can tell me?
Yeah. So a few different services. So one, I do recorded tarot spreads and love readings. So if you are looking for clarity in and around a relationship, a certain person, or a dynamic, and you want to just see, right, what the universe has to give, to share, to illuminate that situation, then I can share that. But my other readings I offer are soul purpose astrology readings. So outside of true love, right, I can take a look at your astrology chart and get to the depth of why your soul is here and what it's looking to experience. And a lot of the times it'll show whether love is part of that path, or it'll show, whatever else you're meant to experience. The third thing I offer is a live one-on-one, what I call a clarity conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I just basically open the channel and talk to a person and channel and open for the guides, right? Our spiritual guides, angels, to come in, and they'll pop in and they'll give confirmations and signs, and I'll just speak that out and translate it. And it's really good for giving clarity in a certain situation. So those are the current offerings.
Those are all. So we're going to review a couple. The one about when you're tuning in, I'm actually curious, is that a clairvoyance, clairaudience, or if you can just share?
I believe it's a clairaudience. I've come to that realization pretty recently, within the last few months. I never really called it anything. And then I got this question, like, what do you do? Like, how is this? And I go, I don't know. I just hear words. I hear words, and they'll appear in my mind in the moment. So like, for instance, I'm not just getting clairaudience right now as we're speaking. I have to request it. I have to be like, okay, is there anything to share? Guides, is there anything to share? And then they'll give me word by word in each moment. And it's a practice of trusting as the words flow through and in, and speaking each one of them. And that's how it works for me. So I'll almost like they'll
a download.
Yeah, exactly. It's a request and conscious translation of a download in each moment. That's what I would describe it as.
When did you start having?
Well, I would say I've had this for longer than I've consciously known or expressed it. So I've had this probably since I started to become aware of it when I got a Reiki indoctrination, or Reiki session. They awakened it, right? They opened the energy. And that was the first time I heard guides, and I didn't know what they were. And they said, stop drinking alcohol and stop eating meat for a period of time. They were specific with that. And not that I'm against meat personally.
No,
but for that period of time, I'm not against eating meat in any way. But they said, for that period of time, stop eating meat, stop drinking alcohol. And I go, what? And they're like, yeah, because I was big, by the way. So we talked about bulletproof. Did we?
Yeah.
And it was
No,
all
no,
keto, all meat. Oh, we didn't.
no, we didn't.
Okay.
Share a
So,
little bit.
yeah. So this all, so I don't know if your audience is into this, but before this whole tarot love, true love adventure that I'm in, I was what we'd call a biohacker. And that was all bulletproof fasting, intermittent fasting, supplements, like human performance, up-leveling human performance, and basically using the mind to optimize, right, every aspect of your human physiology.
Yeah.
So very scientifically minded on the cellular level. And I worked at a place called Bulletproof Labs in Santa Monica, and I helped people lower inflammation and increase mitochondrial output and efficiency and all these things. So anyways, I was big into that. During that career, I decided randomly to get a Reiki indoctrination
Session.
Yeah, well, it was the teach the
Oh,
well, I don't know what they call it. It's
so you
the
got the first level?
yeah. Well, I'm level
Okay.
2 now. I'm level 2.
Ah, cool.
So,
Okay.
but as the first level, that things changed.
Yeah.
So it started to change. And I think it was because I consciously chose to start to pursue a path outside of what I knew, and that's when they knew they had permission to start to come in. Anyways, long story short, that was in 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. It was a while ago. And I kind of put it off to the side, didn't really pay much attention to it, continued with my career. But my urge to get more and more into energy healing and astrology and learn about the esoteric sciences continued to grow from there. And then I started randomly, my coworkers, any of them watch this, laugh, but they started allowing me to give them Reiki sessions while we were working.
Yeah.
And I remember this really good friend of mine, a coworker, he hurt his knee and he had me do some Reiki. And that was the first time I had messages come through for him, specifically from his guys. They're like, it was a very specific message for him. And anyways, it just continued to grow until I realized this is actually a thing.
Yeah.
And it's accurate most of the time, and people find it useful. And it also comes alive when I channel astrology. And then later I got into tarot, and then I realized that this was a gift I could use in conjunction with that.
That is so my twin sister, I think she's a 3rd level Reiki.
Oh, awesome.
I've had Reconnective Healing and I've had Reiki sessions. If you've never tried Reconnective, I say you would want to do that experience. It's different than, well, as you know, Reiki works the chakra centers. Reconnective Healing, it works with the energy field. It's really amazing. Completely different experiences.
Yeah.
Reiki, I still remember when I had it, the way it felt with each chakra, and also it felt like, what is the word I'm looking for? It felt like clean energy. I don't know how to explain it, but like very freed up, clean energy, like purified water. That's the like purified water.
Yes.
Then I had a shiatsu massage. And that was interesting because the person is actually a Reiki master, and she's the one who does my reconnective healing, by the way. But she did a shiatsu, and that I felt like a river flowing. So it was interesting on that aspect, as well as just a regular massage really frees up tension as well. So they all fascinatingly work. Reconnective healing, on the other hand, while you're laying down, and it's from afar that I got mine, it just works different areas, and every experience is different. Everyone, and almost the last one, I felt like I was in water, like those bubbles that they close you in, and you're like in that's how it felt, like oneness.
Wow.
So it's really, you really should. Yeah, that's interesting. And just FYI, 2016, 17, I don't know if you've heard of ascension. And so that the earth is going through its own 5D ascension, transformation energetically. And since we're on the topic, and like I've shared with you with my community, I plan on, and I've already started integrating more of these aspects. So I'm going to share with you and we can continue this exchange. But there is a specific timeline. I don't remember all the dates, but there was at a certain point with this ascension, I already knew that a second wave would awaken. And there's a first wave, a second wave. They've compared it to this economical diagram, the one that, like the laggards, the first adopters, the innovators, there's a specific. So it isn't by chance how you got to do that awakening. Mine began way back when with the earth. And in fact, I still remember the first time I had the root chakra, was my legs were feeling warm out of nowhere. This is when I started having the panic attacks that I told you about. It was shortly after, and I came across this website, Alexandria something. He's a metaphysicist, astrologist, by chance. Like, I don't remember. And I had just started getting into topics about crystals and energy and Reiki, because one of my best friends is in that. So until then, I was very much focused on psychology, sociology, all the human aspects to support humanity. Spirituality, Jesus is in my heart, God is in my heart. Today I transcend. But she started introducing me to things, and I'm open to stuff. But yeah, I came across this website, and I had this first feeling, this first panic attack, and it was when the earth's root chakra was opening up. And so the timeline, then I had another episode, and it was different this time, and it literally moved all the way with the earth's chakras. It was fascinating for me. And I started dreaming. So the Reiki healing, I had a friend, and she gave me at a certain point a session. And then, like I said, I'm not objecting to any. Actually, it just opened up more and more. But it's fascinating because there is a specific timeline, and we are here supporting in different ways. So what you do with true love, very important for the evolution on a cellular energetic level. And so anyone who is not in this world, by the way, just so you know, there's actually also aspects that I'm going to share for a minute with them. Geologically speaking, I don't remember everything, but I have a book that I've read. It's always by Greg Braden, where he points out a timeline, and he specifically points out the rotation of the earth, the megahertz, the heartbeat of the earth. So for anyone who's tuning in again, obviously I'm not a scientist, but I'm sharing information that I've read from somebody who studies the earth. And I'm also sharing experience. Brandon and I have just shared experiences that are personal, connected to something else, but still energetic. So the earth's rotation actually has a specific timeline. And the way he explains it and even shares it, it's about the speed. And when you talk about 5D and you look at metaphysics, this is also about megahertz. Again, I'm just sharing. If you have any information on that, please help. I don't know the words, but what I'm trying to say is, vibratorially speaking, everything's shifting as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love Greg Braden, by the way. He blows my mind every time I've watched his stuff on Gaia, and I got to read that book. But the thing I've studied and felt and looked into is the frequency of the earth, right? The
Schumann resonance.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So on that. But that's what I've been aware is changing subtly and increasing or changing into something different.
Yes, exactly.
Its effect, right? So that's the extent, right? Of I'm like, the earth is going through its own metamorphosis, and as the energy raises, it's going to do two things. It's going to raise the frequency of people to a level that is going to be more in alignment with that, and also, right, and that can be harmonious, but then also it's going to plunge a bunch of people into the things that have been holding them back from something, and
that's exactly yes. Well, the thing is about the megahertz, or however we term it, that's what I was saying to anyone who's hearing and that is not in a spirituality community. Yes, scientists have not added up these dots, but this is a cellular vibration. So I've even had somebody explain to me when light comes in. So when we have the Schumann resonance affects our bodies as it's happening. Those who are, whether you're more sensitive or not, nobody needs to be in the field of believing in anything. Your body is actually adapting. We're part of nature. An article that I recently read and shared with the community says we have magnetite or magnetes. We have within our brain the crystal that Earth has, animals have it. It's in our pineal gland. It's the GPS.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying we're all connected in that cellular format, and what you are saying is true. So in people's day-to-day life experiences, they will have things that take place. So moving back to this topic, when it comes to relationships, for example, the part that you hear and see is great. I see when you're picking that up. It's really truly awesome. And I believe as we find out more information on a physiological and an energetic level, we may gain in the future information on these downloads in a certain way. But
Yeah.
besides that, the part where you do tarot, how did you begin that, and how did it feel, and if you want to share a little bit about.
Sure. Yeah. So tarot was the first step in order to really trust in the messages that I would receive and get downloaded, actually. So it's a good segue here, because prior to that, I was very much into astrology, and I swore by astrology exclusively. It's funny, now I have a YouTube channel all exclusive about tarot, but I was all about astrology, right? And
Yeah.
the reason why was because my mind could hold on to something tangible, right? My
Yeah.
mind could say, hey, this is proof, this is based on someone's unique information, and there's nothing that can beat this, right?
Yeah.
And then I was at this co-living facility. It's called Haven. And there was a bunch of spiritual kind of wanderers, I would say, who lived at this co-living facility. And I was one of them after I'd quit my job at Bulletproof, which is a story for another time. Well, we can get into that if you want, but it's because it's pretty cool. But someone had initially said, hey, I know you're into astrology, but have you looked into tarot? And I said, no, I've seen it, but isn't that for like witchcraft people, things like that? And he's like, no, actually, it would be like an amazing complement to astrology. And I go, how so? And he says, well, tarot's very honest. And he said, tarot will tell you the truth, whether you're ready for it or not. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, when you draw the cards are directly sharing the energy that's currently in that moment present in the universe and in your soul, and what collectively needs to be shared. And I go, how's that possible? And he goes, well, it's just, I'll show you. And, he proceeded to do some readings, and they were profound, and I was intrigued. And I was like, okay, that's interesting, but I don't know how to read tarot, and I don't feel like learning the tarot. So I put that off to the side, as I often do. And then I went to a trip to Mammoth, and with a couple other good friends who I do like a bi-weekly show with, a meditation and mythological thing, Alexis and Maura. And Maura had this deck, the Wild Unknown Tarot, at this it was my friend's house in Mammoth. And we were just kind of, hanging out, just talking, chatting. And she goes, look, here's like, just draw, just here, like take this, draw cards, and see what happens. And I'm like, but they're good friends. I was comfortable. And anyways, I proceeded to draw the cards. I had no idea what the meanings were of anything. And as I drew the cards, the visual representation of the image sparked words in my brain. And I could start to put together the story. The gift that I seemed to have was to put a story together around the images that were showing up that lined up. And then as I spoke that out, it turns out it lined up with what was going on in their lives as well. And I realized, oh, yes, it's important to know the definitions of tarot, but it's also equally as important to feel into the moment and to allow this to spark your intuition. So anyways, that was how I got into it. And then after that, I immediately went and bought a deck and drew cards for myself for like 3 months straight. Hated this deck. This was the Universal Worth deck. And this is my first purchase deck. And this deck and I were not good friends. We were like worst enemies.
How come?
Because, so at that time, I was in the midst of a relationship, and every time I would draw cards, it would show me the cards I didn't want to see, the truth about what was going on and what I did. Right? The biggest trigger, right? So I was worst enemies with this deck, but I would still draw, right? And over time, I realized it was doing for me the exact work that I needed to do in order to evolve in every single way. And I now am best friends. This is my favorite deck,
Yeah.
the original. And it
How
is
did
all
you
about,
start? How did you start giving readings as well?
yeah.
Mhm.
What was my first reading? My first, oh, yeah. So one of my biggest experiences and philosophies is if you know you have some type of, for everyone listening, if you know you have some type of spiritual gift or talent and you want to start exploring giving that to people, always start with your spiritual open friends. Don't start with like
Yeah.
skeptical family members. Don't start with
Oh my
random people.
gosh. Yes.
Don't
Do
do
not
that.
do that.
Just,
Exactly.
there will be people that show up in your life that you are meant to practice this with, to
Yeah.
affirm. And I had those people. I blessed them. I had those people in my life. I had my good friend Eric, and my sister came to me, and there was some other people, and they said, just draw some cards, right, and see
Yeah.
what happens. And every time that would happen, it would raise my confidence a little bit,
Yeah.
and because it's one thing to do sessions for yourself, it's another thing to give for a
Of
client.
course. Yeah.
And anyways, after doing that, I would say, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 times, I started to realize this could be something like added into my business. It wasn't until I decided to make my YouTube channel about love specifically and astrology updates with tarot, zodiac specific love updates, that I really embraced fully the power and the magic of the tarot.
How did the idea come to you to do that?
Well, here's where the integration of the head comes in. So, my heart and everything, it was like signs of the soul and stars. Okay, and I was like, that's the thing. I don't know where it's going to go, but that's the thing. And then after I had that realization, that's when my heart knew where it was going to go. My head had to interpret and figure out and translate that. And what it did was it figured out on YouTube currently right now, right, based on market research, based on SEO research, and based
Yep.
on how to be seen and be recognized on YouTube, what are the areas on YouTube that are most popular with not a lot of competition? And as I did this research, I researched astrology, of course. I researched health. I researched all these things. None of them were that good of topics because they were all either oversaturated or not enough demand. The one thing that was very high demand and very low saturation was tarot.
Yeah.
And I go, really? And my head was like, am I really going to make my YouTube channel about tarot and love? Really, Brandon? My heart was like, absolutely. This is it.
Oh, I love it. Oh my
And the
God.
minute I started doing that, immediately I got positive feedback. I got, it's not much, doesn't sound like much, but at the time for me, 50 views, 100 views was
Of
like
course.
a lot. It was like,
Yeah.
whoa, like that's amazing.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's 50 people you're affecting.
Right.
So side note, I started to do tarot because of my dreams. Because
Wow.
I wanted support to know what I was supposed to, because some of the dreams are for the collective. But eventually I just started embracing tarot because it helped me communicate. I love it. I actually have many. I have the deck you have, and then I got a bunch of other ones at home. And I remember for me at the beginning, it would give me lightheadedness, but I could feel that connection. And I don't distribute the information because there are people who become dependent on it. And like you were saying, it's about the energy of the day. And really it's supposed to be a tool to support you on your journey. So it's one of those well, you are great at what you share, and I can tell like you're always how can I put it, that energy attracts energy. I don't feel that people that would be dependent are coming to you. This is what I was trying to say, because I've seen different types of readers, and I actually know some of them, and they're, let's just put it, in a specific place with their readings, although the energy is still, they're picking up, but they're interpreting with other aspects, which I'm sure they're meant to give to their community. But moving to the side, I wanted the community to hear what you do. That way, if they're ever interested, they can come to you, because this it's very felt that there is a pure wisdom and a pure connection and no fear-based. Not that it's bad, but the fear-based is what creates a dependency and doesn't bring to that love. And
Yes.
it's funny about true love and relationship. One, the way you reacted to, like, really, this is what I'm going to do? Because obviously you never thought you'd go in that direction. But as I saw your channel, I said, I think you did research to figure out, which way, because I saw that the relationship readings or the relationship topics got more views.
Yes.
It's very nice, not to mention that your own transition and what you went through. How did that, did it help you as you were going through your own rocky stuff?
Okay. Yeah, so beautiful questions. I want to add something from your previous statement though about tarot readers in general, because I think that's really important for just to note here.
Yes.
Is I 100% agree. And this is part of the reason why I was hesitant to become a YouTube tarot reader, is because prior to doing it myself, I had watched a lot of other tarot readers, and I don't want to make anyone feel or sound bad or anything like that. But what you said about making people dependent is very important, because that's where the dark side of it is. The dark side of it is, if I'm not here to share this information, you'll be lost. That is totally not true. And if any tarot reader ever gives that vibe, or ever like just creating that energy, it's coming from not a genuine place.
Yes.
It may in some aspects be accurate, like you said. They may be picking up on the energy, but the energy in which they're sharing that from their own soul, right, is not as genuine or as heart-centered or from love as it should be.
It's not centered in growth.
Yes, exactly.
It's not centered in growth.
And I want to note this, because I have specifically made a point to not be that type of guy. Like I don't ever want people ever to be dependent upon my information. And my overall direction of where I want to head is to teach people how to follow their own inner guidance when it comes to love and life. And that's also the big reason why I've moved now away from zodiac specific readings. Because what I found is a lot of the people that were attracted to those readings are, we'll just say that those people are
dependent,
more prone to being dependent, I would say. Yeah.
Yes.
And again, not in a bad way, but it was also, it was the evolution that needed to happen. I'm like, you know what? I need to go into this place where it's going to be more teaching how to handle the energy that's going on and what's going on, but it's not like telling you what's going to happen necessarily, if that makes sense. So
yes, it does.
Just want to note that for everyone listening and going, well, tarot's this or that, but so that was that. And then your next question, what was your next question again? Sorry, I lost myself in that tangent.
I don't know either, but to add to that, just because it's fine, we'll think about it. And if we don't, we'll venture off into another aspect. It is very important as a professional. I'm also, so for example, an online marketer, but with all the psychology and other reading, this aspect, whether it be tarot, whether it be a coach, a psychologist, anything. Just recently, I did a couple of shorts on this topic and in different ways, but a dependency is not growth. A dependency is not empowerment. A dependency is not a leader to me. That is somebody who should not be. And I don't judge them, because in fact, that group of people leads the people that want that information. And there is an energetic vibe, meaning that's why when I said I feel pretty confident you would not attract that. And in fact, see, you moved away from what you recognized is bringing specific individuals that it's not positive to create dependencies. No, I didn't distribute the information. And even if I didn't, even the closest one, I had some that I had to somehow wiggle my way out of what had become a dependency. No, and this is not a positive, the resistance about a person when they're being faced with life, right? So where you help with that relationship, it's beautiful how you share what you do, for sure. And I'm sure that you will create empowerment through the journey, because you already recognize the signs of what is not empowerment. And there are those professionals who instead they don't. And in fact, my mom was telling me how in Italy, my mom's from Naples, Italy, there was somebody that was arrested for cheating people for money. They were a tarot card reader.
Oh,
But
no.
see, this is where, yeah, I mean, I've had other experiences and people tell me things, and I don't negate their gift. Like you pick up on, besides numerology, you're really picking up on stuff. You don't, there's concrete to it, if you will.
Right.
But yeah, if it's being used in a specific way, but the people who keep going for it, it's one of those things. It's not our journey, it's their journey. But yeah, growth is what's important. So the question was about love, and it was about how you help people. I'm trying to think, but it's not coming to.
I remember what it was. If
Okay.
that helps, yeah.
Yes.
And I'll just share too. One last note about that is the way that it's all kind of a little crazy how it happened. Is that so? I did, like you said, I did do that market research, and I said this is the highest demand and lowest population, where my natural gifts and talents and knowledge base lines up, and that is how I chose to go into this. And what I didn't realize, though, at the same time, was that even though my mind didn't want to do that, even though my mind was like, no, but that's a girl's thing, or that's like not a cool thing, or what are my friends and family going to think if I'm famous for a love tarot readings, right? All those things.
Oh, yeah.
But what's interesting is that I was if you look at my chart and all that stuff, like I'm destined in a lot of ways to be that, to do that. And it's weird. I know it's weird to say that, but I'm destined in some ways to, like my son, I don't know how much you know about astrology. You probably know a lot, but my son is conjunct Mercury on the cusp right between the sixth and seventh houses. Seventh house is about partnerships and relationships. Sun is about shining your light and doing your karmic work, and sixth house is about service, and Mercury is about the knowledge and sharing the knowledge. So it's literally sharing knowledge right around and being of service when it comes to relationships and partnerships.
Wow.
So anyways, and all this I realized later as I continue to do it, but it's one of those things where, and maybe some people can relate to this, that you kind of know that you are here to do, or that you're naturally good at, but you don't necessarily want to do, or you're not, it's like your mind is not. That's kind of where this came from. And then the other thing that confirmed it too was that, yes, to answer your question, my own personal experiences in love, in true love, set the stage to me being able to both feel the experiences that I was channeling. So think of this, like I'm channeling info for people that I don't know, that is also just as relevant to them as it is to me. And the magic of it is, and you'll see this in some of my videos, I'll be in my own place of shock and awe about what just came through, because it hits me I'm like, oh, I needed to know that too. Like, thank you. And it's not right. So, but the part of the reason is people can feel that. People can feel that I am genuinely in the experience with them.
Yeah.
And I'm not just some guy who's just sitting on a mountain channeling this information that's not going through it. I'm in the trenches.
Yeah.
And also, so I'm able to combine that channeled info with the experiential, like my experience of it too. I do try to keep it separate, because I don't want people to think that I'm giving my subjective interpretation ever.
Yeah.
But I also, sometimes I'll share, like, I've been through this too, or I know what it feels like to feel, but I never combine those two. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, yes. One, I watch your lives. I can be somebody who says you're always. I can tell that you are communicating. That's just, I can tell when you're communicating. I can tell when you're adding feedback, and really I do the same thing on my podcasts, and it's to help make it relatable. Otherwise, and this is where you're building a community. You're not building a following. These aren't people that are going to randomly, like, you care and they care. And that's the difference. Some people, they get on, and they become, they become whatever. I don't know. I don't want to use any word, but they're not building a community. They're looking to build a following. It's a very different relationship. It's not good or bad, but that's where you are actually looking to build and help people along their journey. And that's why what you have is the way it is. But this was to say, I can tell, and I don't know about who's watching, but I can tell for sure that it's genuine. It's very awesome. The energy part actually is when you're saying about sun signs. So I know some astrology, not as much. I'm going to probably start looking into it, but I know what my sun sign is, what my moon sign is, but I actually have limited information on planets. And it's fascinating because, again, right here, we'll go back to that energy aspect and the soul, a unique spark aspect. So we each have that unique experience and we're contributing to each other. And yet there are groups of energy that are walking a very similar experience together in different ways. Because like you have your purpose, I have mine, and we all know it, but yet we are, so for another talk, but to me energetically it's fascinating because there's various elements that are being combined.
Yes.
Somebody who's born with the same exact astrology, I mean, if there's a human that's born at the exact same time in the exact same place, would that mean, like, when you're reading chart, they would have the exact same chart, correct? Am I correct? Or
yeah, so if they were born in the same location, birth time, and birth date, then their charts would essentially be identical.
I'm an identical twin. So we had it was a C-section. So there's 1 minute difference. We have completely opposite personalities, even though we have the same foundation. So now I'm asking you with the expertise in astrology, because like right now my mind's wondering about that planetary energetic aspects. So would two people have the same exact path or no? No, they still wouldn't.
Here's I love this question. I'm so glad you brought this up. And that's so fascinating that you actually, because this is very rare, right? Obviously, but you have this exact experience, and it's a question people have about astrology. And so my answer for you is that astrology, okay, is the foundation of a soul's blueprint or intention for life and why they came in. So it has the basic foundation or premise for that.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, there's two other aspects that are very important. The second thing is the conditioning that soul, that human, goes through from family, from external influences, from everything else that will often differ. So it's extremely rare for two people to be obviously born at the same time, same place, same thing, to have the exact same conditioning, the exact same experiences, all that's very rare, because often what will happen is, yes, that can happen, but their conditioning, their experiences through conditioning are different. And that drastically changes a soul's personality.
Yeah.
So that's the second thing. The third thing is free will. So the other thing I want to bring in to all this equation that people is very important is that the other half of this whole thing is the choices that we are given as a gift, as a human being in this lifetime, to choose what we want to experience, how to experience it, and whether or not we want to, how fast we want to go on our journeys. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are, and you can see now, right, along with an astrology chart, there's multiple other factors that could influence that split of personality.
Yeah, it is fascinating. And to share a personal note, even though without too many details, not personal me, but I actually have a very specific individual in mind with a specific journey. And I was telling my friend, I said, this is going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because there's resistance happening. Resistance has taken place. Lessons have not been learned. Suffering is the sole thing that is there. And this was supposed to be a destined union. So I'm going to leave it general because I know you get it and the community who tunes in knows, but this will be, and I will eventually lead to fascinating with the free will in mind, because we know about free will. However, to see it played out, and for me, where I've seen literally, we don't redirect. There's nothing you do to break away from your blueprint. Everything you do brings you to your blueprint. This is something that I even have actually another experience of a person who as a child knew what they would end up being as an adult. Like there's a specific incident that they had. Of course, that person isn't the one talking about it. I was told a story and I was like, oh my gosh, this literally happened. And the person is completely unaware of this. So I'm going to be interested. And like I said, I'll share it with the community, because I never thought of you being able to break that blueprint, but knowing of free will. And so this is where, anyways, just sharing right now, but yeah, so
you're spot on. That is our, we have the choice really to resist our blueprint. Hey, there's no string, like the best way I can explain it. I love the term resistance, by the way, because what I've realized is what is meant for you will always do its best to find you.
It will keep
No matter
coming
what.
and coming and coming. Oh my God, no, you should know the people. Go ahead, but there's people that are like literally resisting.
I totally, this is where I agree, is like you're blessed to always know that your destiny will always try to find you. And you also have the choice as to how long you want to resist that, and to resist also the work it would take to receive your destined outcome. That's some people, and that's why awareness is so key. That's why astrology and awareness is so key, is because if you're aware of that what wants to come to you, then the work doesn't seem so hard or scary, because you know that it's what needs to happen for you to experience your ultimate soul's fulfillment.
Yeah.
You don't know, and you're kind of walking in the dark, or like if I didn't know my purpose and I was just like, you know what I mean, I would probably resist a lot more, because I would still think that my mind controlled everything. So anyways, just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. And I love how what you do does support people. And like you're saying, they need to be participants. So you didn't resist. See right there, you did not resist what came your way, even though there's part of you that seems to think that. But I'm going to abstain. It seems like, but I can tell that you, as soon as you opened up and allowed it, though, in 1 year, I realized and just saw the transformation I shared with you. You're lit up, you're love, you're happy, you're in your spot. And if I have to ask this, as you're growing up, is there anything that you would say is extremely hard to accept who you are, that you'd want to share, like how you triumphed that, or if it made it easier? I don't know, something about like that personal journey of getting here.
Yeah. When you say something that is hard to accept, do you mean about me?
About yourself, your unique personality and your journey? Because I know that the tarot and everything you do now, it feels like it was unexpected, but you embraced it. So obviously that part, see, as soon as you embraced your heart, but before that, just getting to where, was there anything challenging that you overcame with your heart, even though you're a mind person? That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's the feminine side of me is the greatest thing that I was in resistance to, which is where all the magic and all of the heart stuff and all of my soul's purpose lied, was in the feminine aspect of me. And I resisted that part of my heart, of my intuition, of the softness, of the love, of the care. And, that's been probably the biggest part of my healing and my progression, is to accept and to allow and to embrace the feminine versus reject it, and because I really, we're all growing and balancing both those sides, but my journey is to become very balanced in both my expression of the masculine and the feminine. Right now, I know that my feminine part of my soul spiritually is like up here, and she's like watching this masculine part of me like resist. and struggle and, like not want to do and all these things, right? So I can sense that that's trying to come into balance. So I would say it was that. It was the part of me that is soft, that is, gushy inside, that is loving, that is nurturing, that wants to care and to give to people and to love them and to cry and all those things. I resisted that. I still resist all the time, but I've resisted that all the time. And, of course, we mentioned it, ironically, like love is the thing that ultimately caused me to like stop resisting that, because it forced me to open that side up. And for me, and I think that the collective that I'm channeling for and the community I'm creating, that's why like love is connected to there's our soul's greatest purpose, is because it's the side of ourselves that's in resistance to love that's also resisting our own greatest purpose, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, it does on so many aspects. And I'm going to add a couple notes and then we'll close it here. And by the way, community, I've asked Brendan if he wants to be somebody who consistently meets up to have these types of conversations. I won't make it only about what he does, but he said he doesn't know yet. So we'll wait and see. In the meantime, one, I want to say it's only normal in a society that is predominantly patriarchal that you as a male, and in fact, this is actually a theme I was discussing with a friend, the challenge, I'm going to put it that way, that a male has to express. So your resistance was not constructed by your person. It was constructed by an aspect that I don't criticize. I understand when I look at our human evolution, which is what we were going to discuss. We're not going to discuss that today, but the human evolution had its place for various reasons. So a beautiful journey you have gone through. And I would say that I'm sure you're going to be balanced very soon, because that feminine side is finally the one who's in the lead. And so, the mind won't be able to do much resistance with a sweet heart. But yeah, with society's place, it makes sense that there's still some things. I remember, and I'll share this, but I tell the listeners how when I came to terms that evil didn't exist in the way the church and the external taught me, because I had read enough psychology books to know that it's a hurt ego. It's a afraid ego. And today, with the basis of neuroscience and how the nervous system works and our flight fight response, this has opened me up even further. Now I understand exactly what mechanism takes place every time fear is present. It's a physiological, but there's so many other layers. But yeah, the part was, I said, I'm sorry, God, I don't believe in evil in this way. I believe in unconditional love, and I'm going to give the love to the people who need it. And I didn't resist it much, but yeah, in the moment when I had my aha, I had like this sense of quote unquote guilt, because this is where you're defying something that you were taught. But I knew it wasn't true. Jesus is love. God is love. And even in my brain, all knowing, all powerful, I'm a human. It means what's coming my way. So even in my own mind, I was able to say, at the end of the day, I have the information, I have the knowledge that you're the one who knows. Technically, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's not a bad thing. So just sharing experiences. Again, those challenges are presented from the outside, and then working with your heart, you get to, wait a minute, it's okay. And you move forward. So, but before we go, do you want to share anything else with the community?
Oh, goodness. I mean, this was just such an amazing conversation. Thank you for, you did an amazing job. Just, I want to share like hosting and holding space, and the questions were astounding, and questions that I've never even explored personally yet. And thank you for that gift. It was so cool I think one of the defining moments of this podcast for me was defining what true love is. That was totally from my soul in the moment. And I have to go back and watch what I said, because I'm curious what that would be. But thank you. And I guess I would just share as last notes for people watching and wondering what to do next, or where to go. at this time, whether it's in love or in life or anything like that, is I would say that the best thing, the best first next step to do is to become aware of the journey that you're on in whatever way speaks to you. One of the best ways I've found is through astrology. That would be very incredible. It sheds a light on why you're here, and it gives you tangible, almost scientific proof
Yeah.
of your birth chart and your soul's journey. So that would say the first thing. And then the last thing I'll say is to ultimately surrender to the part of life that's currently showing up for you that seems the most difficult, or you sense you're in the most amount of resistance to, whether it's love and relationship, career, business, being on
Yeah.
your own, being with someone, family, whatever that is, that's the hardest, that you feel is in your life presently trying to make an entrance that you're in resistance to. Surrender to that, and that will lead you to wherever you need to go. So
Yeah.
I'll finish with that.
And by the way, we'll include Brandon's links, everything, so you can get in touch with him, and have a wonderful continuation of your day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right.